Michigan is all in on their in-house quarterbacks, whether it's Alex Orji or Davis Warren. Do the Wolverines have the signal caller and maybe more importantly, the team to get to the college football playoff for the fourth consecutive season?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Considering what Michigan lost at the quarterback position, the 10th overall pick in this spring's draft, and considering what they had and maybe the inexperience they had in the room, I really thought that the Wolverines would go into the spring transfer portal market and try to get themselves a starting quarterback for 2024. That didn't happen. I think there's maybe two reasons why that didn't happen. I think the hype surrounding the spring portal was a little bit overblown. I don't think it was as wild and crazy as we initially expected it to be. And then you kind of watch the spring game and you look what you saw with Alex Orji and Davis Warren, and you saw some flashes. You saw some bright spots in their game working within the Sherrone Moore and Kirk Campbell offense. Naturally, my eyes, your eyes, everybody's eyes is going to be gravitated to the quarterback position, no matter what team it is. But then when you look at the national champions that have a lot of things solidified at other positions, and then you look at what Michigan has in this battle, you can see why the eyes are drawn to maybe the biggest question mark of this offense and of this team at Michigan. And I think whichever quarterback they choose, and they might not choose a quarterback maybe until the second, third, fourth game of the season, we'll see how it goes. But whichever quarterback they choose, I think is maybe the way they want to lean in terms of the way that they want to structure their offense. Because the talents of both Davis Warren and Alex Orji are very different. When you look first at Davis Warren, I think you get that maybe more traditional drop back passer. And I think Davis Warren has better arm talent and is a better thrower. I think that was demonstrated in the spring game and what he was able to do, really pushing the football down the field. Alex really wasn't asked to push the football down the field in the spring game. You didn't really see that part of his game. It was a lot of short, crisp passing concept. So Davis, I think, certainly has the advantage as a passer. But then when you look at the weapon that is Alex Orji, that can be very enticing for a head coach. That can be very enticing for an offensive coordinator because you can do so much with that. It adds another layer to your offense. It adds another layer to what plays you call in different situations. So whichever direction that they choose to go in, whether they turn left or whether they turn right, I think it's going to determine how this offense looks. So it could have two different looks depending on which way they go at the quarterback position. Alex Orji's skill set doesn't only intrigue me, but some of the viewers out there. Here's a viewer comment from Antoine Johnson. Michigan's RPO is going to be hell to deal with. Teams couldn't already handle us just running the football normally. All it is, it's going to take for a linebacker to be in the wrong gap, and it's a touchdown for a long run. Now, you still need Alex Orji's throwing ability to balance out that run-pass option. Otherwise, the defense is going to kind of know what's coming a majority of the time. So you need to still be able to stretch the football down the field. That's where really the RPO game becomes ultra dangerous, because if you can keep that defense on their heels at that moment in time when Alex is making those decisions, that really opens things up to a completely new level. We can talk about Alex versus Davis until we're maize and blue in the face, and we just might later on during the season if this battle continues to kind of carry throughout the spring and then eventually into the fall and maybe into the start of the season. But we want to know, whoever quarterback it is this a team built around the quarterback that can win a championship? And a comment on Twitter kind of leads me into my next point, the main point of this commentary: if Michigan can get back to the playoff for the fourth straight season. Here from Marco Stode on Twitter: I feel like Michigan is too good of a roster to not make the playoffs. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback. I believe both Alex and Davis bring some positives to the table. Like, when I look at this, of course, they're going to structure their offense a certain way to be able to win as many games as possible. But I look at both of these guys, considering their skill sets, I think they're both solid options based on, and then also based on what the comment kind of said on Twitter, This is a roster that is really, really good. This is a great defensive football team. This might be one of the best defenses in all of college football next season. And then you look at the Colston Lovelands, and then you look at the Donovan Edwards on this team. This is a roster that can put it all together. The offensive line might be the biggest factor whether this team gets to the playoff or not. They are replacing everybody on an offensive line that won 2 Joe Moore awards in the last 3 years as the best offensive line of college football. Now, they've recruited well on the O-line. You look at 4 stars, top 115, top 120 type of kids in the country. And when you have Sherrone Moore still on this team, that culture of offensive line development and progression is certainly still there in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So, will it be as good as the Carson Barnharts, the Zach Zinters, and company that's been in Ann Arbor the last few years? Well, maybe not, but I still think it's going to be a good offensive line. How good will the O-line be? That may determine whether this team is playing in the playoff or maybe playing in another bowl game outside of the playoff when all is said and done. I believe week 2 is a huge swing point for Michigan to determine whether this team is going to be playing for a championship or not. That is their big noon Saturday kickoff game against the Texas Longhorns. If you're able to knock off Texas in the second week of the season, that is a big boost for your team. It gives you a little bit of breathing room, and you can imagine that you're going to rise up pretty high in the polls. We'll get to the Big Ten schedule in just a minute, but if you look at games like Oregon and Ohio State, they may be ranked higher than you at that point. So you might not fall as much as if, say, you were upset at another time during the season. So an early win against Texas is going to make that statement to the committee that's going to be watching all season long. A loss to Texas early in the season is going to put so much pressure on Michigan to play well and to play above the line most of the season. A victory over the Longhorns gives you a little bit of breathing room. 10-2, you feel pretty good that could get you into the playoff. A 3-loss record in a Power 2 conference could probably get Michigan into the postseason, but you're teetering depending on what happens in the rest of the country. And when you have the teams that you have on this schedule throughout the Big Ten slate and that 9-game slate, that puts a lot more heat on Sherrone Moore and these players to develop and to really get up to speed so they can win some of these Big Ten games. There are some marquee games on the Big Ten schedule for Michigan, and winning specifically early in the conference schedule is going to give you a much better shot to make the playoff here down the stretch. Let's look into that Big Ten schedule, why don't we? We start off with a home game against USC. It is the Trojans' first ever Big Ten conference game. When you look at these teams, they are built very different. There's still some questions on the USC offensive line. Michigan may have the best defensive line in all of college football. You look at the young receivers and targets on the outside for the Trojans matching up against Will Johnson and this really good secondary. That's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. You need to establish your dominance early in this game against USC. Like when you talk about the Trojans coming into the conference and playing physical football, going on the road and playing Michigan could be a pretty rude introduction for the Trojans into this conference as well. And then how about a rematch of the national championship game on October 5th when they visit Washington? Washington's a little bit of an unknown. They're a little bit of a wild card right now going on the road. Once again, that's a West Coast team that maybe needs to beef up. They need a lot of help, the Huskies do, on the offensive and defensive line. Now, they're starting to get there. They're starting to take incremental steps to be respectable and try to replace all that they lost on the lines. But once again, early, if you want to make a playoff, like if they lose to USC or if they lose to Washington, their playoff hopes are on very thin ice as you move forward to the rest of the season. When you look at some of these games later in the season, you understand how important that Texas game is in terms of getting to the college football playoff. Because if you lose to Texas and you still have Oregon and Ohio State, who some people are saying, a lot of people are saying, are the two best teams in the Big Ten, maybe two of the top 3 or 5 teams in all of college football, certainly national championship contenders. If you still have those teams on your schedule, that is going to be a tough ask at that point in time. Not saying Michigan cannot pull out victories against the Ducks or the Buckeyes. It's just going to be a little bit tough considering that you already have a loss at that point in time. That's why the early Big Ten schedule is important, because the big-time opponents are certainly backloaded in the Big Ten slate for the Michigan Wolverines. We talked about quarterback play earlier on in this video, and I want to finish with quarterback play. Now, you've had really good quarterback play the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023, with J.J. McCarthy. But before that, you were able to really lean on your defense. You were able to really lean on your run game in 2 Jim Harbaugh editions of the Michigan Wolverines, 2016 and 2021. That's what I want to use as examples right now. And maybe we don't need a ton from the quarterback. We just need a guy that can protect the football and get first downs and move the chains and provide some balance on the offensive side of the football. You look back at 2016. Remember Wilton Spate, 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Remember, they were ranked number 3 in the country last week of the season before losing to Ohio State in double overtime. They were in position to get to the playoff, to win the Big Ten at that point in time when they didn't have great play from the quarterback position. You looked at 2021, current Iowa quarterback, former Michigan quarterback, of course, Cade McNamara that season. 2,576 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He didn't throw a pick until midway through the season. Of course, they won the Big Ten championship before losing to Georgia in the college football playoff semifinals. So whether it's Alex Orji or whether it's Davis Warren, they don't need to put up J.J. McCarthy-like numbers. Now, I know the J.J. numbers weren't some of the best in the country, but you kind of get where I'm going with this. They need to lean on Donovan Edwards. They need their offensive line to step up big and step up in a hurry, and they need that defense to be what they most likely will be. And that is one of, if not the top defense in all of college football. This is a Michigan team that can certainly, when you factor in the pieces and when you factor in what we've seen from the quarterback position, this is a Michigan team that can get to the college football playoff. The slate is tough, but a huge win against Texas in the non-conference could really set the tone and give them an advantage to playing for a national championship in December and then into January. I want to know what you guys think. Does Michigan have the quarterback to get to the college football playoff? Do they have the team to get to the college football playoff? Is their schedule too difficult in your opinion? Leave your thoughts, all things Michigan CFP, in the comments below. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.